Hey, welcome guys. Today we're going to be finishing up our Tamiya M3A2 Halftrack. Now, we have the finished product here in front of us, of course. It was a really fun build overall. We'll kind of get into that a little bit at the end of this video. $20 build plus, maybe $5 for the stowage that we added. We're going to do some pin washes, really washes of, various sorts here, as well as some pigments and pigment washes, things like that to get some of the mud effects. So we'll do our little step-by-step here, and without further ado, let's flip over to the bench and see how we got here. All right, so kicking off with, this is going to be our pin wash. This is the dark brown wash for green vehicles. You could use a black wash here. I got this in one of the packs. I have a lot of different ammo washes. But what you'll notice is there's a dark brown wash for green vehicles, there's a dark brown wash for yellow vehicles, dark brown wash for DAC vehicles. So I think the point is that you can use any dark brown wash for a green, yellow, anything like this, and it will work. Again, you can use a black wash. I think typically black washes they stand out a lot more, maybe too much. So I like when we have a green vehicle, yellow vehicle, I like to use this brown wash. I think it's the perfect amount. It's the perfect touch. So we're going to do a little bit sloppy here in places, especially obviously on the vertical panels, a little bit cleaner on the horizontal, but we're just highlighting all of the raised edges. Try to keep it off the decal. You can see I put it on the decal. You just want to be quick to get it off. It will stain the decal a little bit. You'll never be able to clean it up perfect, but we want the white decal to be a little bit dirty, so I just put a little bit and we're going to wipe that around now. We're doing more of a sludge wash on the stowage, really trying to get it in all the cracks and crevices, but don't let the wash sit for too long. I think I did this overnight, so did the wash, woke up, and now we're just going to use a Q-tip or cotton bud and remove, the first 80 to 90%. Obviously, if there's hard to reach places, use a brush. I just like to use either a Q-tip or a dry brush before I go the thinner route. And usually if you get to this wash within 12 to 24 hours, or 0 to 24 hours, you can usually do this without any sort of thinner. Thinner usually pulls a lot of the wash out, which looks great as well. This is kind of the way I've always done it. So I like to rub the wash kind of all over the vehicle. It changes the paint tone, gives it a little bit of a patina. Just an overall, it's like the first layer of grime and dirt. So that you're going to get that effect really well from the Q-tip. The only thing I would watch out for, and I think on the second wash, I got busy, which is kind of a shame when this happens, and I let the wash sit a little bit too long. As the video goes, you might be able to see the thinner kind of stains the paint a little bit and just makes it look a little bit darker if we let it sit for too long. But again, probably my own fault there. I was working on too many projects at once. I got really excited when I got that Panther, and that put me one too many projects over what I normally do. Plus I was doing that machine gunner diorama, which I try to do like 2 at once. I call it 2.5, because when I start the final weathering stages, I usually do a review and build. Anyways, we also have an interior on this kit, and a little bit difficult to film, so apologies. This is really the best I could get, but hard to get some of the angles in there. But we're going to use the same pin wash. The floorboards are awesome for this. You clean them up a little bit, but really we're just going to do a sludge wash on them, and you'll see that kind of diamond plate texture just pulls right out, which is really cool. But again, we're going to highlight all of the areas, these little hinges and different things. I wouldn't go too crazy. If you can't reach something like up, by the driver's section and the passenger section, so be it. if you were making this model for a museum or something, yeah, sure, and people are going to expect it, or a competition, maybe, you know, you could weather it before. I'm just doing this for my own fun and for YouTube, of course. So if you can't reach something, don't worry about it too much. You probably can't see it if you can't reach it. But same as the exterior, we're just going to use a cotton bud or Q-tip to clean up the interior. And we did a sludge wash on the seats, really just to, there's a lot of khaki, right? And it's one tone khaki. The seats are old. This is a 70s kit. They don't really have pre-molded really anything on them, like little flaps or, you know, wrinkles or creases. So this sludge wash is just going to change the tone. It's going to darken it, of course, but it's going to make it a little multi-dimensional on the seats, and I think it ends up with a much better just look to it overall. We're adding detail to a completely detailless piece, so it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's a lot better than just the plain seats. Next up, this is like step one of chipping that we're going to do on this vehicle. This is pretty standard for what I normally do for chipping. I don't sponge chip. I shouldn't say I don't. I do very, very rarely, maybe for wheels or something like that. But just taking the super, super fine brush along with that Ammo by Mig makes a chipping color, you can easily make your own. It's really just like a dark reddish brown. But going super, super careful. I don't want to put a ton of chips here. I think we kind of get over the top when it comes to chipping on vehicles, but it does look really good. So I'd like to try to find that balance of, you know, enough chipping, maybe a little bit excessive chipping, but not too much. Really, any of these raised lines, obviously you can use logic and say this is an area they'd be, you know, putting their feet on or grabbing onto, or metal would be hitting it, whatever. These ammo cans, right, taken in and out. But I like to do it on really any of the raised edges because it makes everything look better and just stand out a little bit more. But again, doing it with a super, super fine brush. Make sure that when you get paint on the brush it off on the palette once or twice. It just makes, obviously, everything more subtle. Then we have this, this is a newish product. I haven't used it too much, but it works. This is the Dio dry brusher from Ammo by Mig. And then obviously we have a dry brush. It is like pre-made to dry brush. It's not really that much different than normal paint, to be completely honest. You don't need to buy it. I just bought it because it was a new product I wanted to try. But it works really, really well for kind of speed chipping, and like I'm doing here on the wheels and kind of axles and things like that. Areas where, yeah, we're not going to see, they're going to get covered up with mud and things like that, or, you know, there's a million little bolts and things on these wheels, so let's just do it in one quick pass. It works really, really well for that. And then also the interior, especially for this vehicle where it's hard to reach and it's hard to finesse a tiny brush in there and do really good chipping. This is like the perfect method, at least in my mind, for chipping those areas that, again, are hard to reach, but we also won't see very much. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Then we'll move on to the wood wash for our tools. Now, again, I use the paint markers. I'm like desperately trying to use the wood color AK paint marker at this point. I've kind of gotten away from it because, as you can see, without the wash, it's just so yellow. And I bought it, so I want to use it until I throw it out. I won't be getting a new one, but I want to use it. But I'm starting to steer away from it because it adds a nice pop of color, but it's not, I'm not super into realism, but it's just too yellow. So this wash is going to dull that down a lot. We're going to let that wash sit on there for at least 12 hours, if not even like a full day, to where you can barely scrape it off with a Q-tip. Just because we want to basically stain those tools so that we get some of that wood grain effect, but we really knock down that yellow. Next up, we have a track wash, which, again, just a reddish brown wash, but we're going to lather the, slather, I don't know the correct term. We're going to coat the tracks, that works, really like all the way with this wash. Simply because the dark iron color that Tamiya gives us, and I know American tracks would have been darker, but I just like the way that this looks with the dark iron. It gives you a lot of different tones because the dark iron paint from Tamiya is like a NATO black mixed with a gray, mixed with some metallic, and then you bring this reddish, kind of rusty, dirty color in, and in my mind, it's like all the colors that would be in tracks. So that's why I like to use that, and really use it on every single pair of tracks. I know I should probably change it up once or twice, but then we are taking, this is our AK enamel liquid. It's like enamel pigment liquid that I'm really, really liking more and more as I use it. This is the dry mud color. And it's perfect for, again, like a speed weathering, if that's even such a thing. It still takes a long time to dry and everything, but kind of the lazy man's, like the perfect product for the lazy man. It applies like a wash, so it's going to run into the recesses with capillary action. It's going to spread out, and then it self-levels. And it kind of just it defines itself. You don't really have to do much with it. Again, we're going to use it all over the bottom of the vehicle, and this is just like the interior is really perfect because we don't care how it runs in that diamond plate. We just want it to run somewhere because, boots and stuff on the ground would be tracking mud. Same with the bottom of this vehicle. I'm not going to flip this vehicle over, except in this instance. So this is good enough. We just need to get some dirt tones on the bottom. So just because you can see a little bit of the underside or bottom of this half track when you're looking at it from the sides. So this will be pretty much the perfect amount to just darken it up, blend it with the mud that we're going to put on the sides and things, and kind of make it look like, stuff has been splashing up underneath from the tracks and the wheels and everything like that, without us taking too much time and also dedicating too much product to somewhere that we're not going to see. You can see I also put it all over the front wheels and sprockets and everything like that. Now we're going to do some stippling, which is really just creating splash effects and using the same product. I know generally I say to use different products for different tones and things, but I knew I was going to come in with a pigment, so like a pigment powder later. So this is fine. Don't go crazy and make big splashes. You want really, really little splashes, which you can't always get. Sometimes you get too big a one and I don't know, just move on. But try to get it everywhere. It's okay if you get some splashes in places that wouldn't get splashed because it's such a thin product that it's just going to blend into the paint and it's just going to give us a really dirty look all over the vehicle, which is great. We're then going to come in once that's dry with these are Ammo by Mig. This is rubble, and then we have airfield dirt or airfield dust. I'm reading it off the screen. Two different pigments that are very similarly colored, but they're just different enough to get that kind of tonal variation. But they're very, very similar to that dry mud product that we're using. So obviously trying to keep it somewhat in the same scope of dirt, while also changing up the color and the texture just a little bit. So we're going to do a variation of kind of sprinkling it in there and kind of dabbing it in there. Don't worry too much if it doesn't get in the right places or you get too much. Before we kind of secure this pigment down, we're going to come in with a brush in a second here, and we're going to kind of spread it all over, and we're going to knock it down because especially on the interior here, I don't want built up dirt. I don't want raised, like textured pigment, if that makes sense. I want it to look like it's been stamped into the floorboard 100 times, right? So we're going to use this. I don't even know what you call this brush. It was a very long pointy brush when I bought it, used it once, and now it's like a big fan. But it's perfect for this exact type of thing, is like stamping down the pigment and kind of washing it into all these different places. And again, that's just, it's going to look less like you threw dirt in the vehicle and more like 1,000 boots covered in mud have been in this vehicle and kind of pressed it in. Once we have that, we're going to take our pigment fixer here, another Ammo by MIG product, and we're going to hopefully carefully blot it in here. Now, you could easily use enamel thinner to do the same thing here. I don't know what the difference is. Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, or Brett G, however you refer to him or think of him, did a little bit of an explanation on it, and there's some different like film or sediment sitting in the bottom of the pigment fixer. So I can only assume there's a little bit something more than just thinner in it, but they kind of work the same. I'm just using it because it's what I have, and I think it came with one of those Ammo by MIG multi-packs. But using the same pigments, we're just going to layer all over the bottom of each of the sides of the vehicle and use the pigment fixer exactly the same. I don't have it on film, but we're also going to go up into the wheel wells. And again, any areas that you can see from the side. Here you see I didn't use the brush to kind of stamp it down because I want this to look chunkier. I want this to have more texture and look like, you know, mud has been splashed and keeps splashing and it's falling off in areas and it's building up in others. So that's it for the weathering on this vehicle. I didn't want to go too crazy. I wanted it to just be good enough. This was I think like $18 kit, maybe 22 at the most, and then about $5 on the stowage. So it's an old kit. It's a 70s kit. It's a classic that Tamiya has brought back. Judging on the lack of availability of the AA version of this kit, which I luckily, once I saw it was sold out everywhere online, I was able to grab it from a local hobby store. Centerline Hobbies, my favorite. But I don't know if they're going to remake this. It's not like a groundbreaking kit, like, oh my god, you have to have this. It's just a fun classic Tamiya kit. Yes, it has its issues. There's, you know, a big seam line down each of the road wheels, and I don't know. I said this in the review. I've heard there's some like inaccuracies and things, but for a really cheap kit, it's super fun, and it's a subject that we don't really have. I know Andy from Andy's Hobby Headquarters just did a 1/16th version, which looks awesome. And then Dragon has a version of this that I think is probably a million pieces, and I really don't have any interest in building. So this, again, super fun kit. If you can find it, it's not like a true weekend build once you do all the stowage and all this other stuff, but it is a quick build. And it's just, again, it's one that we don't have. I love half tracks. I love the exposed interior. You know, we have some M1 Grands in the back there. We have our 50 cal up top, stuff like that, and the 30 cals. There's just a lot going on, and really happy with the way it turned out. Sometimes I always just need a rubber band kit, a rubber band track kit, and this suited that perfectly. It's a little bit more in depth than your typical like Tamiya rubber band track kit just because of the interior, but super fun. I would highly recommend it to anyone that's thinking about it. There's not many other kits you can get for $20 that I think are as great as this. And you just have to look at the fact that, hey, it's a 70s kit. Don't be critical. Just have fun when you build it. But if you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching, and thank you for watching. If you haven't already, I would please ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. Coming up next, we are going to be getting into, I did the top 5 video that had a ridiculous amount of success. So we'll be doing one of those. I won't ruin it just yet. I'll ruin it when I put the title on YouTube and upload the video, and you know, spoilers will all be gone, but I'm going to be jumping into one of those. I also have the BF110, which I am currently doing decals on. Once I finish that, we'll do a clear coat and just like 1 or 2 steps of weathering. We'll get that uploaded. I'm like halfway done with the Panther weathering. So we'll get all that stuff up in the next couple weeks. We'll get the review of the unnamed kit at this point. And those are the next videos that we will see you on. So I'll leave you with the finished product here for about the last minute. And again, thank you for watching.